Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayne. I write romance and romantic fiction, and today I'm talking about all the books that I finished reading in July. So July was actually a really good month for me for reading. I finished 5 books, which is very unusual for me. I'm usually around the 2 to 3 range per month when it comes to finishing books. But I don't know, for some reason this month, maybe it's because the days are longer and so I'm staying up later reading at the kitchen table because it's still light out a little bit. But I also think it's because I've been watching less television, which means that I have not been seeing any of the shows that I want to see. You all, I haven't finished the second half of season 3 of Bridgerton. Oh my God, I know, can you believe it? I don't think I like this trend of dropping half a season and then waiting a month to drop the other half. That did not work for me this time around. Because when it first dropped, when part 1 dropped, I was so excited. I was there. I was ready. I had it on my calendar. I was like, I got a lunch date with the premiere of season 3 of Bridgerton. I can't wait to see Penn's story. And watched all 4 episodes back to back. And then lost momentum with that break. And I started getting into some of these books that I wanted to read. And then it was like, oh, I got to finish this book. I got to finish this book. So I was spending my lunch hours reading after dinner. And so, yeah, I haven't even finished part 2 of season 3. And they're already talking about Benedict's season. And I love Benedict. So, yeah, I got to get on this. Yeah, there's also a couple of movies I want to see. There's that one, Family Affair with Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron and Joey King. That one looks super cute. I really want to see that movie. And then there's another one that just came out with Harry Connick Jr., where he's a retired or on break rock star who takes a vacation to Cyprus and romantic entanglements ensue. I want to see that one as well. But I ended up sacrificing all of the movie and TV watching I could have been doing for the books. Some great books this month. First off, I read The Artist Scandal by Regina Black. This book came out last year, I think. And when I first heard about it, when I first saw the cover and read the synopsis, I was like, oh, I definitely want to check that book out. Sometimes, and this is a weird thing, it doesn't happen with all books, but for some reason, there are some books that I really want the experience. I envision it in my mind, and I'm like, I want the experience of going into the bookstore and wandering the shelves, looking at the displays and going, there it is, there's the book I'm looking for, and picking it up and walking to the counter to purchase. And this book was, for some reason, that was the experience that I wanted. Took me over a year because while I was waiting for this to happen, the paperback came out. And, yeah, I could have ordered it online. I do that all the time. I could have gone to the front desk and said, can you get this book in? But no, I was determined to have the experience of picking it up off the shelf. So finally, a couple months ago, when I saw the paperback, which is beautiful. Look at that. It's gorgeous. It's sexy and elegant, colorful. I love it. Anyway, I went in and was like, oh, maybe today's the day. Today's the day. And you know what? It was the day. I walked in and they had this book. I was like, there it is. So this is a book. First of all, love this story. It's about a woman who has been sort of sidelining her own career and her own ambitions to support her husband's political career. She was an art major in college. She had dreams of doing something with museums, art curation, that kind of thing. And she ended up falling in love, getting married to this guy who had political ambitions, and everything, all of her stuff got sidelined to support him. Then she discovers that he's cheating on her. Surprise, surprise. So she just completely flying off the seat of her pants, strikes a deal with him and says, you give me $1 million in the house and I won't tell anybody about your affair until you win this campaign. I think he was trying to become a senator. He was trying to get to the White House. I think he was trying to become a senator. So she strikes up this deal with him that she won't tell anybody about the affair as long as he gives her $1 million in the house. And then she goes and sees a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, baby girl, you did not ask for enough. But anyway, that was just one of the many wonderful things about the book. I have read a few books where women are going through a divorce and they're getting so screwed over, just so screwed over in the most infuriating way. And in this book, no, we get to see a badass female lawyer going to bat for our girl. Anyway, and in the meantime, of course, she meets this gentleman here, a young artist. So already they have something in common. And so she ends up sort of falling for him, which she has to keep that a secret because she's, you know, supposed to be protecting her husband's image while he tries to get reelected or elected to this position. So that is the setup for this book. Loved it. It was funny. It was well written. It had a lot of like really well drawn side characters. Like, not only did I love Nathan, but his brother was really cool, and then she had some extended family that really added to the story and all of the drama. And it was really fun because it was like, okay, what scandalous thing is going to happen next? What like little twist or secret is going to come up next? That was this book, and it was just a total delight. So, Artist Scandal by Regina Black. All right. Next up, and I did talk about this in my last video about spooky summer reads. Next up, I finished Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Absolutely love this story too. It was spooky, it was creepy, it was gothic, also had a central love story, so totally was into that. Very compelling love story, and also a very fresh and interesting take on the vampire myth. So this story was the sort of beastly, grotesque, terrifying interpretation of the vampire archetype, but was a twist. And I'm not going to say anything more, but I will say that this book not only has the vampires, but it also has the invasion of the American invasion of Mexico in what year? I think 1846. Yeah, 1846. So it's a toss-up who's the most dangerous and who is the most sinister, the Texas Rangers or the Rinches, as they're called in the book, or the vampires. It's a toss-up. So, Vampires of El Norte, loved it. Perfect summer spooky read. And romantic as well. All right. So next up, I also talked about this one in my last video. It is, I'm just going to say right now, it's not a romance, nor is it actually even romantic. It is more on it's definitely on the literary fiction side. It's I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. It is literary fiction in that it's definitely not so much about a character arc, but about sort of the main character's coming to understand what she's going through and what her viewpoint is. So it's less an arc, really not an arc, more just coming to an understanding of where she's coming from. And so this book is more about obsession, obsessive drive, desire, and all the ways that desire can be twisted and can sort of eat you up from the inside, particularly when you're dealing with things like, you know, feeling outcast. In this case, the protagonist is a British Indian woman surrounded by rich white people. And so she feels outcast, and there's a certain amount of there's kind of this feeling, I think, where if she can just get this guy, she calls him the man I want to be with. If she can get him, then she'll also feel good about her life in general. And he sort of really embodies the sort of like powerful, rich, privileged person that he is married. He's also having affairs with other women, and he treats the protagonist like crap. And he just kind of does whatever he wants, and she puts up with it, and she still wants him. So it's also kind of disconcerting because there was a lot, I read this in the library, and now it's on hold. Now somebody else has it checked out, so I can't access my notes. I made a lot of highlights and a lot of notes in this because there were a lot of parts where it's like, ooh, I understand that feeling. Or, oh yeah, I've been there. Ooh, I had a situation similar to that. That is, in one way, it could be kind of like disturbing. But in another way, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one who's had like these really messed up moments in their life. Anyways, I did really enjoy the book. Took me, the ending was one I really had to process. And it sort of just left me with the conclusion of how it's really, you can be as self-aware as you want to be. You can be really self-aware. You can do all the work about like recognizing unfair and unjust systems and recognizing the unfair way that society treats or looks at you and how that affects the dating pool and how that affects how other people view you and how that affects your desirability to other people and how they respond to you and whether they're attracted to you or not. You can have all this knowledge and all this self-esteem and all this self-worth, but in the end, you're still going to probably get jacked up one way or another by a system that you're in when that system is jacked up. So that was definitely eye-opening, made me think about a lot of things, but it's not an up book, so don't go into it thinking that. And that is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. Next up, second to last book here that I finished is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This is also another perfect summer read because this is a book that has like practical magic vibes. It has witchy elements, magical elements, elements of magic. I want to say that it's kind of magical realism, but I'm not 100% sure I know exactly what the parameters of magical realism is. This book is very realistic and grounded in like real life things, but there's one element of magic in it. I don't know if that's what magical realism is, but that's definitely what's happening in this book. It takes place in like a rural community in, I think, North Carolina. Is it North Carolina? Yes, in North Carolina, small town, small rural town. So it has a lot of the farm, pastoral vibes. The protagonist works on a family-owned flower farm. So you have your flower farms, you got the local church, you have the extended family or the family business that's been around for generations, and you got some romance, a very compelling love story, and magic. And it also takes place around the summer solstice, so another perfect summer read. Really enjoyed this. As a matter of fact, to not give anything away, but the ending, when I got to the end, I was like, oh my gosh, now I want to go back and reread it now that I know how it ends. And so I've been doing that. I've been reading really quickly because I have just read it. So I'm kind of like just reading all the parts that's like, okay, how did the ending affect this part? And it's really wild because there are some scenes that like, oh, hit differently, hit harder. They have more resonance because you're like, oh, I know what happened. So now this scene even has more layers and more emotion. So yeah, I'm probably going to end up getting this, a copy of my own of this one, because I am like immediately rereading it and enjoying it just as much, if not more. So that's The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. All right, and last but not least, and I do want to get a hardcover, my own copy of this book as well. I've been wanting to get my own copy of this book since I heard that it was coming out, and but I haven't. This has been like a month with like some unanticipated expenses. So I had to stay away from the bookstore this month, which really hurt. I'm like, just wait till next month. Just wait. It'll be fine. It's called, come on. Why do you not understand my misspelled words? How are you not reading my mind on this? Here we go. It's called I Shouldn't Be Telling You This, But I'm Going to Anyway by Chelsea Devantez. I just finished listening to this on an audiobook narrated by the author. Chelsea Devantez is a TV writer and comedian and actress. I first heard about her on a podcast. I think it was The Stacks with Traci Thomas. Chelsea Devantez also has her own podcast called Glamorous Trash. It's a celebrity memoir book club kind of podcast. And I think that's how I heard about her in that context of her podcast, and I subscribed to her podcast. Like, she did an episode about the Mariah Carey autobiography, which I've read, and of course the Britney Spears memoir, the Jessica Simpson memoir, whole bunch of them. And I just love her humor. I love how she tells stories, I love her viewpoint on celebrity memoirs. She says in her memoir, and also she said on interviews, that she really thinks that celebrity memoirs are important, because a lot of times, particularly the memoirs that kind of get downplayed as being less serious, are the ones written by women celebrities. And she said this is an amazing way to sort of really understand the truth behind people's lives, because usually, particularly with women celebrities, they've had to bury a lot of stuff, keep a lot of stuff hidden, not talk about stuff, just always be projecting that image, whatever image it is at that time, or their fans, or the journalists, or whoever society has decided they need to stick to. They have to uphold that image. And it's in celebrity memoirs where they actually get to tell their story that you're like, oh, there are other things going on. And sometimes the things that they're going through are things that a lot of people go through. And that was one reason why Chelsea Devantez loves celebrity memoirs, because it was a way to sort of navigate her own life. So when I heard that she was coming out with her own memoir, I was immediately sold. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to hear her story. One thing that I do want to bring up, and this only came out, so I'm really curious to see how it looks in print. This only came out because I saw on her Instagram somebody had asked her or commented about it. And then that's how I learned that this happens in the story. Her memoir was originally framed between two episodes in her life where she went through very serious domestic partner abuse. And it was so bad that it affected her life. It affected her psychologically and emotionally. She says that she's been diagnosed with a PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a stress disorder that comes from multiple traumas and multiple layers and responses to those traumas. And she had gone through these experiences trying to bury it and trying to move past it. And she finally got to a place where she could talk about her story and tell her story. And her memoir, and kind of the whole point of the memoir, was the framing of how she came to understand herself better once she realized how much this traumatic experience had affected her. And then, as she got the book deal, it was ready to go, went through all the editors and was ready to go. And then she was told that the legal department, basically the publisher's legal department was like, you can't talk about the domestic abuse for legal reasons. She can't even really talk about what those legal reasons are. So they were like, you have to pull those chapters. And she was like just on the floor about this, as I think any writer would be. You have your book, and you have your book, you got it out, you went through all of this emotion and all of this having to go through the muck and dredge up all these old memories and relive all of these really awful experiences. And you're finally in a place where you can talk about it and tell your story and hopefully, help other people who have gone through or are going through something similar. And then to have your whole structure of your story, your whole raison d'etre, the reason for the story was to talk about this event. And then to be told, no, you can't tell that story after all. Not to mention, it's like 2024. It is 2024. And people and the legal system is still protecting the violent perpetrators and not protecting the victims. The legal system somehow in this situation, and I don't know the details because she can't talk about the details, but the legal system is protecting her abuser to the point where she can't even talk about the story. She can't even talk about what happened to her, even though there's records of it, and even though there are other witnesses. She can't talk about it in her book. It blows my mind. I'm furious for her. I know that I'm not as angry as she is, because she talked about how angry she was about this. So what she decided to do, instead of just pulling the chapters and rewriting or restructuring the whole book, she kept the chapters in, but she blacked out, kind of like, those FBI files, or there's confidential files, or like HR files where you block out all of the identifying information. She did that with those 2 chapters. So you have these chapters that are basically just filled with all these blacked out marks. And when you're listening to the audiobook, she's basically like, in a town in the year redacted, I went through redacted. That's pretty much how she has to tell the story. So you get the hint that it was a story where she was a victim of violence by a partner, an intimate partner, but she can't tell any details about anything, not even where it happened, like not even what city she was living in. Anyway, so you're like listening, and she has to, and you can hear her start to like say redacted, and then some very like 2 more words, and then redacted. And I'm just like, when you're listening, you're like, wow, you can feel the frustration of having this whole story that you cannot share. And as a reader, as a listener, you're like, you want to know what happened. Because I think we're all curious. We all have that little investigator in us, I think, who wants to know the truth of what happened, what really happened. And we can't know. But the brilliant thing is that in showing how much she had to black out of her own story, in showing how much she couldn't tell of her own story, is a story in and of itself. And it's a story of how, particularly women, because women are usually the ones who are victimized and not protected by the justice system, the legal system, the system that we're all living with, living under, living by, how much even now they still don't even have the right to tell their own story. And this particular thing hits home for me because in my writing, in my books, a lot of times the theme of the ways in which women, and I use that term in the most inclusive way, women presenting folks are still oppressed, repressed, twisted, stopped in their path, held back, made to feel bad about themselves, made to feel shame because of the patriarchal system that we live in. And it's still happening. It's still happening. Like even today, when we're supposedly, and we are more accepting of, we are more like really looking at stories of women and really starting to take their stories seriously. All the Me Too stuff, all that stuff, and it's wonderful and it's great, but there's still situations where this woman, and she talks about it, she says, I'm successful, I have money, I have a therapist, I have a lawyer, I write for television, I have, a certain amount of status. I have all of that going for me, and I still was kept from telling my story. So what does that mean for people who don't have all of these things going for them? They're even oppressed even more so. And it's just wild to me. But that isn't the whole story. There's just also a lot of really great stories in here about her upbringing. So anybody who's ever struggled or been in any sort of dysfunctional upbringing or been bullied or been made to feel ashamed for the way you present gender-wise, the way your body is, just being like attacked for who you are, period. There's a lot of that, of like, really inspiring stories of like, like it's not just me who's gone through this, but also here's how she dealt with it. And there's stories about how she made it into TV. Like she tells you, she takes you through all of the all of the crappy like stand-up gigs, the auditions where you're rejected in the most public and humiliating of ways, the thinking that this show that you're pitching, thinking that they're going to pick it up, the network's going to pick it up, and then they're like, well, except we really want this and not this, or the person that you're pitching with decides they don't want to do it anymore, so then the network doesn't want you. She tells all those stories, and they're all really, if you're anybody who is like struggling to achieve a goal and just keeps having all these setbacks and all these rejections, which I think probably anybody who's in any sort of artistic or creative endeavor will relate to. She talks about all of that as well. And she's just hilarious. I love her viewpoint. I love the way she phrases stuff and the way she talks about. She'll also have this way of talking about things that are really, really fucked up, but she'll do it in a way that makes you laugh. And I listened to an interview where she said that that's kind of what her goal is. She's like, if you want a story where you read about a lot of messed up stuff, but also see a way to laugh about it and get through it, then this is the book for you. So that is, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway, by Chelsea Devantez. So those are all of the books that I have read in July. It was a really good reading month. I'm hoping to kind of keep this trend or some semblance of this trend going through the rest of the year. So let me know in the comments what books you read in July, what books you finished in the last month, what your favorites were, if you've read any of these books or are thinking about reading them. I think that next I am going to do a reread of It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I have that book. I've read it twice. I really love that book. And the movie is coming out next Friday. It's coming out August 9th with Blake Lively. And I love Blake Lively. I think she can do no wrong. So I think it's going to be a really great movie to see because of her. But you know how it is when you really love a book. You're always nervous about how the movie is going to do it justice or not do it justice. But we'll see. I've been hearing good things. So I'm thinking of doing, actually, for my next video, I'm thinking of doing a reread vlog and a movie vlog, a vlog of going to see the movie. So if that's something that you would like to see, let me know in the comments. So yeah, that is it. I post book content every other Friday. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to know about the next videos that I come out with, go ahead and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye.